Okay, hello, welcome everybody. My name is Loreen Powell. I'm at Marywood University, and I also am presenting this with Ronda Mariani from Commonwealth University at Bloomsburg. So we're from two different universities. I used to work for Commonwealth as a state university. It's part of the PASHE system, which is the Pennsylvania State Systems of Higher Ed. I was there for 22 years, and then prior to that, I worked for Penn State. So there's another Penn State person in here. In addition to Beatrice. I worked there for about 5 years as well. So, and now I moved to Marywood for the very first time, and Marywood is a Catholic university who is very big on philanthropy, and everything that we do, it is for the students. Our goal is to teach students to be better ethical and community engaged leaders. We want to teach the students to be good. So it's like a really big deal for me to, again, go back to redoing my education, redoing what I've done for all these years within the classroom. I, by nature, am a programmer. I'm in the MIS field. Data analytics is my specialty. So I do a lot of the Python coding and stuff like that. So for me, to go now and figure out an assignment for students to go ahead and integrate is a little bit difficult, right? Because that assignment has to be giving back to society, giving back to community. And so that's what this is about. I talk a little bit about a new era of philanthropy within the classroom. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about volunteer computing on the World Community Grid. And has anybody ever did any World Community Grid volunteering? No? Okay, well, hopefully after today, you'll see how easy it is to do to give back. And it can apply to anybody's class. So why, again, I take it from an IT perspective. You'll see why I'm taking it from an IT perspective. But each and every one of your classes can, in fact, because of the development of the World Community Grid and how it's very diverse, it can go to any discipline. So in particularly, we think a little bit about today and the rough times that we go through, whether it be we just got over the pandemic, right? That was a very rough time for all of us. We can think a little bit about the global economy, global warming, all the changes within our environment. We can think about geopolitical volatility, what's going on now. We can think about our inflation rates going up, how our economy is, and so much more, right? So we're bombarded with a lot of stimulus all over from, society into our everyday lives. So it's really now really important more than ever to tell our students about being socially good and becoming into more of a philanthropy approach. And that's really where my university, Marywood, is coming into this. And they're saying, one of our main goals within every single class that we teach, we have to have philanthropy within it. So you now need a project. You now need to get your students involved in, giving back to society. So as a result, that's kind of sort of where we are with it in terms of, again, contemporary society necessities and moving into creating really a better, well-rounded student. Oops. So in particular, when we talk a little bit about being philanthropy and service learning, first and foremost, again, we're trying to get that student to be well-rounded individuals. There's a tremendous amount of research out there that is available. In particular, they oftentimes say that it helps fostering a deep understanding within their fields on how they can go give back to civil engagement within their community, right? So there's a lot of research out there within it, supporting it, helping it, again, and moving towards, creating that well-rounded student. Just some research out there, first and foremost, and then Mitchell, he also talks a little bit about, that if we integrate service learning projects, they're going to help us with our critical thinking skills, right? So students now have the ability to think a little bit about some social issues and develop some practical solutions that also involve critical thinking skills as we move through a philanthropy approach. We also go to a next study, and in particularly, we look at Hartman, and in particular, he talks a little bit about, again, as a service learning experience, fostering the essential professional development skills, such as communication, teamwork, and project management. We also think a little bit about another research study. Clayton in 2018, he says this, we got to do for the common good, right? And so we're learning a little bit to prioritize common good and gain awareness for, again, the capacity to enact a positive change in society, right? So be that positive, do good, do the change within society. In addition to learning your expertise, but also learn how to be the change and lead it in a common good way, shape, or form. And in addition to that, we also find that, it's one of the main skills that the workforce is really looking for. It holds significant value out there for the workforce. So in addition to doing good and developing them to be a well-rounded person, it's also really essential to note that employers value that on their resume. So that would be something of a benefit for the students to look at. So in addition to all of that, here's where I come in. Like, we think about, all of this has to do, and we have to think about being these great community service projects and service learning within it. So how do I get these students excited? Well, think about today's students. They're digital natives. They've been really going through with technology since they were babies, right? So they're better at technology oftentimes than we are, right? So what we want to do is we want to really get into and find very innovative avenues to engage them in the charitable activities through technology means. And so that's where we're coming in that way, shape, or form. And hopefully that it comes from a global perspective. In the past, some of the things that we have done, not here at Marywood, but at my previous university, is we would do 3D printers, and we would be utilizing the hands, 3D printing, to create prosthetic hands for third world countries. We had a lot of faculty who traveled over to Rwanda, South Africa, and so they would be bringing prosthetics for people over there that didn't necessarily have the ability to get into that. So that was something that we did, and that would be a project that we did on. So this new era of philanthropy service is really one that we're always looking to go ahead and become very, very important, right? And the other part of it is now we're in an economy, and we all know with higher ed, our budgets are being cut. So this previous idea of using the 3D printers to create these prosthetics hands really can't exist anymore because we're now on, limited funds, right? So we need to find an even more innovative way. And there's one of the ways is to go through volunteer computing on the World Community Grid. It's really using technologies, the technology that students themselves cannot live without, whether it be their phone, their computer, their tablet. They can't do without that phone or any of this in their daily lives. So we're really trying to help them to do good with technology, the technology that they love so much and have every day in their life. So when we think a little bit about the grid, it's not necessarily a new topic. It's been around for a very, very long time. It's just that a lot of people are, again, maybe fearful of it, like programming, anything in IT. Sometimes people become fearful of it. The same thing with volunteer computing. We'll talk a little bit about later on about what are some of their fears with regards to volunteer computing. But it is right now noticed as one of the novel innovations of the 21st century. And ultimately, the goal too within the classroom and within presentations is to, drive awareness so that more people become aware of it, and we create even a bigger computing power out there to do a lot more research in that way, shape, or form. So to grow ultimately our supercomputing power through the projects that we use throughout. So when we think a little bit about the grid computing, if you're not familiar with the grid, those of you who are not in IT, the grid is what we do is we want to disperse geographically computers all throughout the world, right? And so you don't necessarily, like this conference, we all come together, right? We present. So the exact same concept with the grid is that we're all from various locations, and we're all coming together, utilizing our computing power to make a joint effort, right? To lead to an ultimate cause. Same thing here. We're here at this conference. We're all from very geographical areas. We're all coming together to do what? To make an impact in terms of what we're trying to do and to share our resources. Exact same concept grid computing works on in that way, shape, or form. It offers a way for research on very difficult problems such as predictive modeling for finance, earthquakes, health outcomes, climate, weather change modeling. All of those are really a lot of the projects that are on there. highly research-based, highly computing time-based in that way, shape, or form. We see that oftentimes, we get into these niches where the sites that we are looking at on the grid in particular are research-based, but they're research-based in specific areas. So if there was something in architectural interior design, that might be one area, way, shape, or form. There might be other ones out there on healthcare, right? The COVID-19 vaccine, again, utilizing computing power to come up with a solution, et cetera, track the vaccines. All of that is also found on the grid. So we can see, again, utilizing resources from all over the world to come together for our computing power to go ahead and use it for the good. And particularly, we have several things we look at it. The grid is ultimately becoming even more powerful, right? Because we can simply look at it as basically like a cloud repository where the results of the data that are, we're collecting from millions of volunteers, throughout the world, right? We're going through that process. Researchers oftentimes receive the results in a shorter time period, right? They couldn't possibly have utilized their own computing power, or it would have been really way too expensive to hire and get a supercomputer. And in essence, what they're doing is dispersing it throughout so that they can get that work done in a shorter period of time. Oftentimes, it would have been years for them to go throughout and do. And then ultimately leading to what we really want it to be is discovery, right? Discovery in ways, shape that we can make an impact within it. So as we look a little bit about grid computing, oftentimes we've got lots of things happening within it. We've got a lot of development of the server farms and cloud computing, which are pushing it forward. So maybe you're now going to hear a little bit more. That's a push forward for it. We oftentimes also see the limited power of computer networks, right? So, and effectiveness of software manager. So now we look at it, we think, okay, well, we've got the power of software. Our software that we have is advanced, that we could be able to manage all throughout the world, dispersed throughout, and be able to manage everybody. So that becomes really, really important. We also think a little bit about the inefficiencies of waste within systems. So oftentimes we can think a little bit about, oftentimes migrating within our technologies. We're always new to adapt within the technologies, getting rid of our technology so quickly that ultimately we lead into waste, so that those systems can in fact be still utilized if they are energy resource efficient. Again, creating that ultimately eco-friendly or green environment. There's a lot of push within that. And then ultimately the whole goal is what we're trying to do is, again, increasing number of data centers and their massive energy consumption. Oftentimes, that becomes a really big issue. Again, when you disperse it on the grid, we can be all over throughout the world. So there's not a massive energy consumption from one specific location. It can be dispersed throughout. We can be utilizing areas where it's much more of a eco green, and then countries that are also very wealthy within technology, that they can have better resources rather than specific locations. For example, if we were looking at maybe China, there's oftentimes areas within China that we look at from a energy consumption source, and we're saying absolutely not, way too much energy consumption in terms of what we're using, because A, the devices might be old, or B, in fact, the cost of their energy is much higher than what we would want it to possibly be. So we can look at it that way, shape, or form as well, is that, we can still do the research, we can still get everything moving forward, but again, on a much cheaper or a little bit less energy consumption, making it eco-friendly. So it leads into, that's the grid. So what is volunteer computing? It's the exact same thing. We're utilizing distributed computing on the grid. So we're dispersing all of the computer power, but the only difference is that it's not for pay, right? So we don't have anything for pay. Now we're actually, everything we're doing is donating. So the PC that we're using today to log in to go ahead and present, right? That PC during its idle hours, we could be utilizing it to go ahead and do some computing power that we're going to go ahead and share to the grid. Okay, so oftentimes that's really, really important about it. The other things to note that Similar to grid computing, volunteer computing is also used heavily by research institutions. We discussed that nobody knew anything, but there are several real projects that are out there. The folding at home was another good project. Rosetta at home is another good project. Oftentimes, many of the lead universities go throughout and utilize these projects. And again, we're building upon, helping, aiding society to solve real world issues, donating something that we, use every single day. We're just going to walk away, let it, while we're sleeping, our computer can be working to solve real world problems. Okay, so that's the whole idea of volunteer computing. During the pandemic, it really became much livelier of a topic. Why? Because we're home, right? We were temporarily home. We also were looking for ways for tracking COVID-19, and we were also looking for ways, to cure it. So that became up onto volunteer computing on the grid, and there was a huge resources out there. Again, people from all over the world working, donating their computing power to make good, so that we can hopefully find a solution to problems. Other things that we also see is, again, that ability to reduce the power consumption by 35%. By pushing it to cloud servers in that way, shape, or form. So that's really another good thing that we're optimizing within volunteer computing and dispersing it all over throughout the grid. We also see within research, a lot of research has been done, in particularly those of you who know about climate change, how the climate is changing, making such huge impacts. The climate change within Africa, they say several, as we move forward, there'll be several parts of Africa that will not, in fact, have water, right? The rainfall, because of how we're moving throughout. So what are we doing to preserve this? How are we doing this to preserve it? Awful lot of research going into that. So particular, one of the things that we did is we observed during the rainfall season, utilizing the World Community Grid, is we said, okay, well, let's take a look at the run times and the daily times. If I utilize my PC and I utilize a laptop and I utilize a smartphone, what are the run times? Will there be any difference within the technology being old, new, and in that way, shape, or form? And we found that there really was no difference within the run times, because the app itself didn't take up anything much on either one. So it was very good and essential to see, for people to say, hey, use your phone for this, use your laptop, use any device, you can make a difference. So within this case, for students, it was really essential for them to let them know that, hey, you have this device 24/7 on you. Now you can utilize it for good. It doesn't necessarily have to be your laptop, doesn't necessarily have to be your computer. And so that's one of the things during 2020, during COVID, that we looked at. Okay. Obviously, we wanted to integrate that back into the classroom so more students could be aware of it and know about it. Another study in 2021 took a look at the textbooks within IT, right? It's an IT related topic, grid computing, easily can integrate volunteer computing in it. So what we did is we looked at syllabi over 6 weeks from the 10 of the state PASHE institutions in Pennsylvania. Nobody included it. So that's a problem, right? Because we're not teaching this. We're not telling students about this volunteer area and methods that we can use to help give back. We then analyzed textbooks over a 6-month period, over 1,000 undergraduate IT textbooks. Only 13% included the topic of grid computing, right? So the moment you have that topic of grid computing, you could then add into volunteer computing. So obviously we suggested more incorporations, and we provided a resource for people now to go ahead and incorporate and now utilize that document, which documents grid computing that they can utilize in their classroom. So this is the World Community Grid. It took a little screen capture of it. Obviously really friendly, user friendly. If you haven't already been to the World Community Grid, it's just the worldcommunitygrid.org. And you can see that as of 2020, so there was 7,980 volunteers. That is not a lot of volunteers. If you think about the massive amount of people in the world, this is just a small amount of people that are actually going through and volunteering. So here's an area, here's a movement that we could get these young people involved in, right? To do good, to give back. Just as they go on Instagram every day, we could say, okay, well, why don't you do, good on the World Community Grid and do some volunteering every single day, make a difference, right? Make that part of their daily habit as they move throughout. And so another push was, again, during COVID, we saw it actively growing. We saw a lot of stuff happening within COVID, bringing awareness to it. So some of the students, as they come into classes, they may be aware of it because they've heard about it, because during COVID there was a push. So in particularly, the purpose of this this research was really to provide a better awareness for computing on the grid by using it as a philanthropy effort and service learning project within my classroom. So I was trying to get the students to do good, and again, reaching them with what they do, what they use every single day, right? Is that computer, what they know, that's this computer. What is their life? That is this cell phone, right? So utilizing and adapting to them, saying, okay, well, if you don't have time to give back by going to a physical place, you also always have time to give back when your phone is in downtime. So those ways, shape, or form. So those are type of things that I will talk about, how I went ahead with the exercise, how fast the exercise is to do, and then I'll lead with some discussions and tips on what you can do within your own class. So in particularly, I announced the philanthropy project as an extra credit assignment. So it was an undergraduate course, BIS 301. There was 2 sections. In particular, the sections were face-to-face. So it was not in an online class, but there's no reason why you couldn't do this online. Very simple and easy. I'll show you today. Literally, it'll take me 3 minutes to get up and running, and we are now volunteering back. The total number of students that participated were 48. So what did I do? Step number 1, first and foremost, I made sure they understood what in fact is, grid computing, right? So that was something they needed to learn about very quickly. I talked to you about it, did the same with the students. They need to talk a little bit about the World Community Grid. What is that? Talk to them about it. Once they were shown that, we went out and downloaded and install Bunk. Once we got there, we go ahead, and I always tell them to select something that is on the World Community Grid. And then we go ahead and I show them how to volunteer and begin that process. Once I get done, I handed out all of my personal 5 laptops within the classroom. So again, they're not utilizing their technology. I'm not jeopardizing their digital profile in any way, shape, or form, or jeopardizing their technology. I literally just passed them out and said, okay, let's break it down into groups. Again, because it was 48 students, divide that by 2 because there was 2 different classes, 2 different sections. So literally the groups were probably 5 to a laptop. Okay, so it was 5 to 4 to a laptop. They went ahead. They went out onto Bonk, which is sponsored by Berkeley University. It's an app developed by Berkeley University. Again, most of the things in the World Community Grid are always developed by universities. It's more research-based. So we went ahead and installed it. Once we went ahead and installed it, again, I recommended to utilize a project on the World Community Grid. We clicked the start button. We began volunteering. After 15 minutes, we stopped volunteering. So I'm just going to show you really quickly how fast it is to do that. So once you install it, here it is. This is the application that comes up. It's very quick and easy. Let me just move this Zoom thing. I was going through, and at this point in time, I suspended it. But if I wanted to unsuspend it, all I had to do is simply click on resume. And you'll notice that when I simply click on resume, it will go back through and it will begin to start. Okay, it's going to go through the whole process. I was doing Rosetta at home. It's developed out there by the University of Washington. It's a biology project out there in the University of Washington. What they're doing, it's a 3-dimensional shapes on protein, and they're trying to do research. So this is research that they have been doing over the past 13 years. So they're trying again to get a little bit more up on it. And again, very simple and easy. They watch it very quickly. It requires nothing on my PC. This is the only thing. It's running in the background. If they went out to the World Community Grid, they simply go ahead and click on World Community Grid, and they can go ahead and click on Add a Project. And here's a whole list of other projects that they could add. Okay, so you can go through and you can see there's a variety of things outside of the World Community Grid or ones inside the World Community Grid. Right now within the World Community Grid, the only thing that they have in terms of the largest ones that they're looking for right now is the HIV, cancer, again, the rainfall within Africa, so the tropical, they have some diseases, solar energy, clean water, and then they say a few more. So you can go ahead throughout and take a quick look at which ones you want. And then you come back, you just simply click on run, and it will go ahead and it will begin to go ahead and do the task. Okay. Then they went ahead and they simply click on suspend and they're done. So very quick and easy, done. So what's happening? It only took us 3 minutes to go ahead and download, put up the app and click on run. So they're doing good while we're talking, right? So just like right now, if I would have that running, we're doing good while we're talking. So very simple and easy. What I have is I always make sure that my laptops are powered in. If you are using a laptop device, it does not work on battery. So you do have to actually make sure that they are plugged in. Obviously, a PC would in fact be plugged in. For the cell phones, they don't have to worry because it does not need to work off of it can work off of a battery. So that is good in that way, shape, or form. During the 15 minutes, what we went ahead in that process is talking them to a little bit about and examining the computer use policy and the terms about grid computing, because oftentimes the number one fear is, oh my gosh, they have access to my computer. What will happen? You know, I feel uncomfortable. They are accessing my computer, right? So we talk about it. We look at their user policy and terms. We look at the number of breaches that ever occurred, 0. And so we talk a little bit about, you know, it is research based. So there could be a possibility that something could go wrong. But again, we're working for research, and in particular, if you looked at their terms and policies and condition, is that in anything that does go wrong, they're willing to go ahead and fix in any way, shape, or form. So again, that type of thing is in there, again, easing the fear of them. And then last but not least, we talk a little bit about privacy. Can they access any files on your computer? No. So by looking at that policy, looking at the terms and condition, it also eases their fears within it. And additional, after we go through that, we still have a couple minutes left. Then I talk to them a little bit about, well, okay, would any of you do this on your own PC, your own tablet, your own smartphone? Why or why not? And we discuss it, right? We look for, to tell them the challenges and experiences, you know, tell them to do good, you know, in that way, shape, or form. So some of the benefits of it, a lot of benefits. First and foremost, they tend to love the concept of a service project, right? That doesn't cost them anything, nor does it necessarily cost them their time. It only costs them is their computing power and then the resources that they have. Again, it's a nice break. Sometimes when you need a break from class, do something good, you can go ahead and do that. And then last but not least, we're again showing them a positive way to do good with technology, to use it in a good way, shape, or form, rather than for just fun. Okay, so in conclusion, obviously this is research in terms of limit is very limited. I didn't do any type of study and any type of analysis on the student's experience. It's just talking about what you can do from your class. And again, because of the World Community Grid is the projects are so diverse, the topic could actually go in any specific class, and anyone could actually volunteer on the web. Takes you literally on the World Community Grid, takes you about 3 minutes to do. That's all. Thank you.